But good one, I can see some improvement in those vocab test results. I can see that we're moving in the right direction for some of you guys. We're working hard. And I can see the work that's putting in. I can see the change, yeah? Because Greek won't give you anything for free, but it will richly reward your efforts. Put more effort in, you get better marks. It's nice and simple like that. It's wonderful like that. Greek won't give you anything for free, but it'll richly reward your efforts. So I can see things are moving in the right direction for some of you. But for some of you, we've still got a lot of work to do before Friday, yeah? Okay? So keep working hard, keep digging in, keep doing it deep. It's just another couple of days. It's Wednesday now. By Friday, this time on Friday, it'll be all over. This time on Friday, it'll be all over. It's just 2 more days. Just 2 more days. So keep working hard at it. Keep working hard at it. Okay, we're looking at tense. Things are starting to get a little tense around here, right? Okay, you see what I did there? Yeah. All right, so we're looking at tense. We've seen our present tense, we've learned our future tense, and when we learned the future tense, we realized, actually, you know what? Things are pretty good when we come to the future tense. It's easy peasy to get my future paradigm. All I have to do is add a sigma. Happy days, right? That makes it nice and easy. All I have to do is add a sigma, and I've got my future paradigm. But that pesky little sigma just changed things a little bit. So we had to learn a few little rules for our sigma formations. And what that's going to do is some of those vowels, letters at the end of our stem for our verbs. But that's okay. We got our head around that. And we learned that future, nice and easy to translate as well. I will. Simple as that, right? So we're looking at this table here, and we've filled in one more of those rows, or one more of those question marks from our Greek verb tenses. So that's good news, right? Luo, luas, luai, luomen, luete, luusen. Easy, and luso, lusais, lusai, lusomen, lusete, lususen. Nice and easy. Now, what we want to do is we want to start thinking about the past, right? We want to start thinking about the past and how Greek can speak about things that happened in the past tense. And there are actually 2 different tenses that Greek uses to speak in the past. 2 different tenses. They're called the imperfect tense, and the aorist tense. The imperfect tense and the aorist tense are what we're looking for here when it comes to speaking about things primarily in the past. What's the difference between the imperfect tense and the aorist tense? Well, let's try and think about that, and let's try to get our head around that for a little bit. The aorist tense, it's kind of like your classic past tense if you think about it like that, right? So if I said present tense, I untie, future tense, I will untie, what's your gut feeling for past tense? I untied, right? I untied. Simple past tense, I untied. That would be the aorist tense in Greek, right? Simple past tense, I untied. It's like it looks back on that past event and it's done, it happened. It kind of once-offy kind of idea, or not even necessarily once-offy, but just it looks back at the whole event and says it's done, right? I untied. Doesn't really talk about the process of it or how long it took or how hard it was. It just, I did it. It happened in the past, right? I untied. That's the aorist tense, right? If we're translating aorist tense verbs, then that's how we'd kind of translate them. I untied. Happened in the past. I did it. Kind of completed. We look back at the past and we look at it as one kind of event and say, it's done, right? That's the aorist sense of the past tense. It's our classic kind of past tense, right? The way we'd think about it in English. That's aorist. Imperfect is a little bit different, right? The imperfect tense also talks about things in the past, but talks about things in the past almost as a past process. As a past process. So how might I say that? I am untying, present. I will untie, future. I untied, aorist. I was untying, imperfect. Yeah? You see, it gives that sort of sense of something that happened in the past, and it was a process. I was untying. You should be writing this down. I don't know why no one's writing that down. You should be writing this down, right? This is what it means. This is how you're going to translate imperfect verbs. I was untying. That happened in the past, doesn't it? That gives you a sense I'm not doing it anymore, right? I was untying. Yes. It tells me something happened in the past, and it tells me something about the kind of process. It went on for a while. Is that kind of connotation behind that. I was untying. Yes, happened in the past, and it was kind of a process that went on for a while. Something like that is kind of the idea that we might have behind the imperfect tense. All right? Got nothing to do with now. It's talking about the past, but it's past and process. Think about it like that, maybe. And in fact, the imperfect can carry all sorts of different kind of connotations to it. And these kind of connotations are something about things that happened in the past that were a kind of a process. So the way I want you to think about translating an imperfect, your gut feeling, your first go-to, the way you're going to do it is, I was untying, right? That's the way we're going to translate it. But I want you to be aware as well that the imperfect can carry a little bit more nuance to it like that. So say, for instance, I used to do something in the past repetitively. It wasn't a process, but it was something that I did quite a lot, repetitively, habitually, or something like that. I might say to you that I didn't, but I might say to you, I used to smoke. Right? I used to be a smoker. You get that kind of idea? It's something that happened in the past. I'm not just looking back at a once-off event, or I'm just saying, yeah, I did it. I did it quite regularly in the past, but I don't do it anymore. Right? I used to smoke. I just puffed. I never breathed. Yeah, don't worry. You guys are too young to remember Bill Clinton saying that as the president. Yeah. I just puffed. I didn't inhale. Okay, cool. All right. I used to smoke. That would be an imperfect kind of idea as well. And the imperfect can even carry that idea of something that sort of happened in the past. The beginning of it, I began to go into to be a minister. All right? That kind of idea might be something you could, is part of the connotation of the imperfect sense as well. Again, can you see that I began? It's telling you about something that happened in the past, but when you say I began, you're not just talking about once, you're saying it was a process. I kept doing it, right? That kind of idea. Yeah? So I began, that might be something that you could get into would be conveyed by the imperfect tense. I used to, that might be something conveyed by the perfect tense as well. Right? Little nuances in the imperfect tense. But the main way I want you to think about the imperfect tense is I was untying. Yeah? That's the default kind of translation. If one of those other nuances kind of works better in the context, you might go down that road and you might argue for it. But the default imperfect translation, I was untying. Past and a process. Okay? You with me? So two different ways that Greek can talk about the past. Two different past tenses. I untied, simple. Simple past, I untied. That would be the aorist way of speaking, all right? That's how we'd translate an aorist verb. And I was untying. That would be the way we'd translate. That's the default translation for a imperfect past process, yeah? You with me? Maybe this little picture might help you, right? Translating Greek tenses. Let's have a think about this. This may help. It may not. It may confuse you. I don't know, but we'll see. These guys are making life so much better for us, aren't they? Okay, so present, right? X marks the spot. That's where I am right now. Present, it's happening around, the action's happening around me. It might have started before, now. It might keep going past, now. I'm teaching. Doesn't mean I wasn't teaching this morning. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be teaching this afternoon. But it's just saying I'm teaching. Might have happened then, but it's going through now, right? It's going through X marks the spot. The action is happening. Present. I am untying, or I untie. Future, X marks the spot. The action's going to happen in the future, right? It hasn't started yet. It'll happen later. I will untie. All right? Action hasn't started yet. X marks the spot. That's where we are now. Action hasn't started yet. It will happen in the future. I will untie. Aorist, X marks the spot. The action happened back then. It's kind of, and that big black dot kind of just represents the action. All right, we're kind of summarizing it. We're just stating it. It happened. It's done. X marks the spot. That's now. And then in the past, that happened. I untied. Aorist. But the imperfect, X marks the spot. The action happened behind me. It's not happening now. X marks the spot, right? It's not happening now. It's not in the present. But it happened behind me, and it went on for a while, right? I was untying. It was a process behind me. I don't know, maybe that picture's, well, it's not really a picture, is it? That's a very generous way of describing it, but maybe that graphic, I told you I'm not very arty, maybe that helps a little bit for the visual learners to get their head and go, yeah, okay, that's starting to make a bit more sense to me, right? Okay? Present, action's happening around us. Future, action hasn't started yet. It will happen in the future. Aorist, I look back on the action that happened, just kind of as a whole. I did it. It's done. And imperfect, I'm talking about the process that happened in the past. I was untying. Yeah? Okay? Kind of with me in terms of understanding how these tenses work and what kind of information they convey and how we're going to translate it, right? That's what we're going to get our head around. We're going to get on top of that. So, any questions about that at this stage? Any questions about the difference between the imperfect and the aorist or anything like that? You're okay, yeah, Joff? Imperfect, yeah. I used to smoke. It's kind of habitual, that people would say. But yeah, I didn't just do it once. I did it. I kept doing it, but I don't do it anymore. Yeah. That would be imperfect. That would be imperfect, yeah. Any other? Let's just make sure that we're all on the same page. We're all happy with understanding the difference, particularly between the aorist and the imperfect. Okay. Now, if you're happy with that, then how do you think Greek tells us that the verb's behaving in an imperfect way? And how do you think Greek might tell us that the verb's behaving in an aorist way? How do you think? You've been playing this game long enough. What do you think it's going to do? It's going to change the endings. More paradigms. Woohoo! Yeah, I can hear you. You're excited. Yes, it is going to change the ending. But this time it's going to do something even more special than just that. It's not just going to change the endings. This time it's going to put something at the front as well. just to make it even more exciting. We're going to change the endings. We're going to put something at the front too. So here it is for you. The imperfect paradigm. And you can see that what we're going to do is we're going to chuck out the front there that little epsilon. That epsilon is called an augment. An augment. And it's out the front. Epsilon is an augment. And epsilon's kind of out the front of the verb is Greek's kind of way of saying this happened in the past, right? This is a past tense kind of idea. So our imperfect active paradigm this time. New one. We've got a new lot of endings that we need to learn. Yes, we do. Can't hide it from you. We've got a new lot of endings, and this time we've got an augment out the front as well. A new lot of endings and an augment out the front. So our imperfect active paradigm goes something like this. Eluon, elus, eluen, eluomen, eluete, eluon. Now, it's a new paradigm, right? You've got to learn it. I'm not trying to hide it from you. I'm not trying to cheat. You don't get this for free. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, well, that ending looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? Yeah? Ete for my second person plural, and omen for my first person plural. That looks pretty familiar too. Right? So it's not all bad news. It's not all disaster. Eluon, elus, eluen, eluomen, eluete, eluon. Exactly the same. So what are we going to do? Panic! We can't know anything. Am I the one who was untying, or were they the ones untying? Ah! Can't know anything, panic. Is that what we're going to do? No. What's going to help us? Context is going to help us. Context is almost always going to help us. Very rarely, if ever, will there be any ambiguity between the first person singular and the third person plural. Very rarely will there be any ambiguity. Very commonly, you will make that mistake. Ha 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 ha. Almost guaranteed, right? But very rarely will there be any ambiguity. Because you'll sit there and you'll come to me and you'll say, we'll do it in translation in class, and you'll put your hand up and you'll say, Steve, this doesn't make sense. It's like, It's an I will do this. It's Elohon, I can see it, but it just doesn't make sense in the context at all, and I don't understand, but Elohon is the first person singular. And I'm going to say, yes it is. And what else is Elohon? And you're going to go, yeah. It's the third person plural as well. Right? But yes, Jasmine, you were going to ask a same question? Excellent question. Jasmine says, what if the verb already begins with an epsilon already? Then what's going to happen? That's a really great question, and it's a really good gut instinct. Because now that we've got that pesky little augment out the front, we had some rules for what's going to happen if I put the sigma at the back. And now we're going to have some rules for what's going to happen if I put the augment at the front, right? Because if I put the augment at the front, the epsilon, against any of my consonants, like luon, for instance, luo, put it against the consonant, no problems. It's just going to sit there. Eluon, elus, eluen, eluomen, eluete, eluon. No problems at all. Put the augment out the front of a consonant, we're all happy. But as Jasmine's just asked, and her gut has told her, if you put the augment up against another epsilon, or any other vowel for that matter, then right? They're going to have some problems. All right? We're going to have some problems. So we've got to learn our new paradigm, the imperfect paradigm. Should we say it together? I think we should. We have to say it loud because you have to say it over the path layers out the door who are making our life so happy today. Right? Now ready? Eluon, elus, eluen, eluomen, eluete, eluon. Say it again. Eluon, elues, eluen, eluomen, eluete, eluon. Right? It's new. It is new. Not going to hide it from you. But it's not so bad, is it? It's not too scary. Right? Eluomen, same. Eluete, same. First person singular, third person plural, they're the same as each other. So I think it's not so bad, right? It's not so bad. All right, fine, it's bad. Fine, okay, all right. Okay, but yes, this problem we need to deal with. But at the moment, now our table's getting bigger, right? Our verb table's getting bigger now. Before we just had one little column. Luo, luas, luai, luomen, lueto, luusen. Now we've got 3 columns. Okay? We've got luo, luas, luai, luomen, luete, luusen. Cool. We've got our future, which all we had to do was add a sigma to, so that was easy. Luso, lusas, lusai, lusomen, lusete, lususen. Now we've got an imperfect as well. We've got to add that in there, right? Eluon, elues, eluen, eluomen, eluete, eluon, right? Now our practice verb table just suddenly got a little bit bigger, yeah? 3 columns on it now. I told you it's going to keep coming. Told you it's going to keep coming. But yeah, now let's deal with Jesmond's problem. And Jesmond's excellent question. We're going to have a problem if our word, our verb that we're trying to put in the imperfect tense, if it begins with like vowels, when I put that augment out the front, then they're going to clash with each other. They're not going to be happy with each other. We're going to have some problems. Right? So you see what we're doing, right? This is the question we're asking. What if my verb begins with a vowel? If it begins with a consonant, no problems. I can put that augment out the front. If the verb begins with a consonant, no problems at all. But if my verb begins with a vowel, then what's going to happen when I put that augment out the front? Here are some rules for augmentation. Firstly, if my verb begins with an alpha or an eta, when I put the augment with it, next to it, on top of it, in front of it, it's going to lengthen, right? It's just going to lengthen. So if I've got an alpha and I put my augment at the front of it, it's going to lengthen to the eta. And if I've got an epsilon and I put my augment in front of it, my epsilon augment, it's going to lengthen to an eta. And if I've got an omicron and I put my augment in front of it, it's going to lengthen to an omega. All right? Going to lengthen. You're going to get that lengthened vowel sound. If I'm putting my augment out the front of a vocab word, a verb, that begins with a diphthong that has an iota in it, for instance, if I put it out the front of a verb that begins with I, then it's going to lengthen with an iota subscript. And if I put it in front of A, it's going to lengthen with an iota subscript. And if I put it in front of oi, it's going to lengthen with an iota subscript. Okay, so basically when I put my it's so much nicer when it's not banging my head. When I put the augment in front of the vowels, they lengthen. Right? That's really what happens. But just if it's a diphthong with an iota subscript, then if it's a diphthong with an iota, it'll become an iota subscript under the lengthened vowel. And if I put it in front of a diphthong, like with an upsilon, an ow, it's going to lengthen as well. Right? So if I put it in front of a diphthong ow, then it's going to lengthen to oo. And if I put it in front of the diphthong u, then it's going to lengthen as well. Note this one down the bottom. If I put it in front of the augment, in front of the diphthong oo, it's going to lengthen, or it's not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. No rhyme or reason to it. Just sometimes it'll lengthen, sometimes it won't lengthen, depending on how the person felt that day. No, it's probably not that, but lengthen or not lengthen. Sometimes it can be both. Okay, our rules for augments, right? Remember, this is putting the epsilon out the front when I go to the imperfect tense, yeah? Put the epsilon out the front. I got my rules for augmentation. This is what they look like. Basically, the vowel will lengthen if the verb starts with a vowel. That's the takeaway message when it comes to rules for augmentation. Got it? Let's do a couple just to try and get our head around how this is going to work and what it looks like and stuff like that. All right, let's make this work for us. So, for instance, if I had akuo, and I want to put that in the imperfect form. The imperfect form. Well, firstly, I'm going to change the endings, aren't I? From the luo endings to the eluon. Right? That's the first thing I'm going to do. Change the ending. But I need to put the augment out the front as well. Okay, now we just learned our augment rules. So this time I've got eta plus alpha. That's what that's going to look like. Oh, sorry, epsilon plus alpha. That's what that's going to look like. And it's going to give us eta, isn't it? That's the rule we just wrote down. So what would be the imperfect active indicative first person singular form? We're just talking about first person singulars here. What would be the imperfect active indicative first person singular form of akuo? Anyone want to have a stab? Ku on. All right, because I changed the endings to on. Eluon, that's my imperfect ending. Eluon. I've got to change the ending to on, and I've got to put an augment out the front. But the augment out the front lengthens, so it's going to be ku on. You see how that works? You're all writing it down, but no one's giving me any indication as to whether that makes sense to you or not. Do you see how it works, yeah? You see what we're doing here? Change the ending to the imperfect ending, put the augment out the front. But then when we put the augment out the front, we've got to use those augment rules. We're going to lengthen that vowel out the front. Ku on. Let's do another one. Oikodomeo. Oh, this one's tricky. All right? Have a look, work on this one for yourself for a second. Try and figure out what's the rule that we're going to use here. What would be the imperfect form of oikodomeo? I want every single person to write down now what they think, or work out what they think the imperfect active indicative first person singular, we're just doing the first person singular, form of oikodomeo is. Every single person needs to write an answer. Oikodomeo. I want to put it into the imperfect tense. Eluon. I need to change the ending to the imperfect ending, and I need to add the augment out the front. Every single person is writing down an answer. Have you got an answer yet? Every single person's writing down an answer. What you think it might be. Oiko to meo. Oiko to meo. This is the present form, but I want to change it to the imperfect form. So, let's take it step by step, nice and slowly. I want to change it to the imperfect form. So I've got to do two different things, yeah? I've got to add the imperfect endings, right? Change it to imperfect endings. So that's my regular ending, O, but I've got to change it to on. And I've got to put an augment out the front. Okay. Now what happens when I put an augment out the front, epsilon augment out the front of a diphthong oi? Have a look at your rules. We just wrote them down. When I put an augment out the front of a diphthong oi, what do I get? I get omega with an iota subscript and a breathing mark, because now it still begins with a vowel. Yeah? I get omega with an iota subscript. Everybody happy with how that worked out the front? Yeah? I got omega with an iota subscript. Now, am I done? Oikodomeon. Is that the answer? Who wrote oikodomeon? Who wrote this? Yep. 1, 2, who else? Everybody was writing down an answer here, okay? So I've got 2 hands that wrote down this. Is that right? Only 2 people. So what did the rest of the 17 of you write down? Yeah, Jotham. You got rid of the O. You had okodomen. Why did you get rid of the O? I don't know. Just sound like fun. Yeah. Josh. You got rid of the E.
Yes, with the omega. But I put omega.
Okodamone. Why'd you do that?
I don't know if the rules apply here with the epsilon meeting with the omega.
Okay. All right. Because you just saw that if I got epsilon plus omicron, it gives me omega. Yeah? But that's for the front, isn't it? This is the augment rules, yeah? Yeah? Derek? Okay, so that's not, we don't want that. What we had was on, yeah? Derek? Excellent. This goes back to what we learned the other day for our verb rules, remember? And our verb rules say that an epsilon plus an omicron gives you oo, yeah? Because this is an verb as well. So this is going to be oikodomoon. Tricky one, right? Because it's got the augment problems out the front, and it's got the problems at the back. There's our verbs that we learnt the other day. So this is going to be et plus oi gives you o with the io subscript. But because it's an et-o verb, that game we played the other day, those vowel formations at the back end, not at the front, at the back, for the et-o verbs are going to come into play. Oikodomoon. Hey? Starting to hide well. Exactly. They're starting to hide well, aren't they? Yeah. Exactly right. Let's do another one. Eulogeo. All right, now you're not going to fall for that trick again because it's an et-o verb and I've warned you about it. Yeah? Eulogeo. Eulogeo. Going to have the augment rule out the front again, as always. Well, in this instance. But we're also going to have the et-o rule problem at the back. Different rules. Don't confuse them. Okay, so eulogeo. Well, I need to add an augment at the front. Epsilon plus u gives me u with the lengthened eta there. Okay. But I've got the same et-o problem at the back, right? So if I was to make that look like it was imperfect, it would be eulogoon. Yeah. No, because it's an et-o verb, yeah? So it's an et-o verb. So we've got the e coming up against the o of the on, yeah? So they're going to rub against each other. Because we learned that eulogeo as part of our phileo verbs, yeah? It just behaves exactly like phileo. It's an et-o verb, yeah. Yeah? Yeah, because sometimes that lengthens, sometimes it doesn't, as we said just before, yeah. So if you just left it as eulogoon, then that might be the case too, no problems there. But usually these things lengthen. Okay, you getting a sense of how this augment works? Put an augment out the front, really, the vowels lengthen. Put an augment out the front of the consonant, no problems. We can do that easily. Put an augment out the front of the vowels, basically they lengthen, right? So yeah, they're starting to hide really well. When you see lengthened vowels out the front of your vocab, your word out in the wild, you're starting to think, I bet that's got an augment out there. Right? So I'm starting to think, okay, what's that hiding? What's the vocab word hiding behind it? It's going to help you try and figure that out. I think that's it. Yeah, that's all I had for practices. All right, so now we've got 3 columns to for our verb table. 3 columns to our verb table. we've got our present column, we've got our imperfect column, we've got our future column. But, you know where this is going? We've got to add the aorist column to it as well, right? So that's the imperfect tense. We need to add one more tense. We need to add our aorist column. Things are really starting to get tense now, right? I can feel it in the air. One more column for you. Yes, Herbert. Yes.
There was in the rule of augmentation,
Yeah.
epsilon plus u
Yeah.
is optional to be u.
Or you. Yeah.
Now, how do we know the options when they apply?
They don't apply necessarily with any rhyme or reason to them. All right? This is what I'm saying. There's no particular reason for that. And again, remember, our job's not to write Greek. So you're not trying to figure out when I write this, should it have this or that, even though we're practicing it here. Our job's to read Greek, right? So then we need to know that it could be both. So when we recognize it when it's out in the wild, we're looking at it, we're going, does that have an augment? But that's that pesky little oo. Maybe it could have an augment even though it hasn't lengthened, because sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, yeah? So it's about recognition rather than writing, but there's no particular reason for it. No rhyme or reason, there's no rule. There's no this word will lengthen, that word won't lengthen. There aren't too many words that begin with you anyway, so it's okay, but it doesn't, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Okay, aorist, remember, past action, and we're looking back on that past action as a completed whole unit. It's done, it's dusted, that's what we mean when we go aorist. But how do you think Greek tells you that the verb is aorist and not future or perfect or imperfect or present or anything like that? How do you think it does it? No, come on, everybody involved. How do you think it does it? It changes the endings, right? Okay? It changes the endings. Now, when we had future, we had normal endings, just add a sigma. That was happy days, right? Except we saw that sigma causes us some problems. But at least we got the normal endings. When we had imperfect, we didn't have sigma problems, but we had new endings and we had augment problems. Yeah? Out the front. Okay, the good news is that when we go to aorist, we've got the trifecta. Woohoo! We've got all three of those. We've got augment problems, we've got sigma problems, and we've got a whole new stack of endings to learn. Woohoo! All right, yay for the aorist tense. So here is our aorist paradigm. It's got an augment out the front because augments give us an indication about past tense in Greek, right? Augment out the front, just like we did with the imperfect. It's going to have the same rules applying with the imperfect as we just did then. Augment out the front. You can see there's a sigma there all the way down, right? The aorist endings begin with a sigma. Sigma's there all the way out the front as well. So we're going to have the same sigma problems that we had with the future. So we've got the augment problems when it comes to aorist. We've got the sigma problems when it comes to aorist. And we've got a whole new stack of endings. When does the fun stop? It never stops. Elusa, elusas, elusen, elusamen, elusate, elusan. Elusa, elusas, elusen, elusamen, elusate, elusan. Now it's a whole new paradigm, right? I'm not going to try and pretend it's not. It's a whole new set of endings. We've got to learn that. But if you kind of just get the vibe that the aorist is like got that sa, then we can kind of see how this is our kind of our first person plural as well, right? We've had omen and somen, now we've got samen. And we've had ete and sete, and now we've got sate. So, you know, maybe these ones are going to help us and get... Okay, fine, it's a whole new paradigm. You just have to learn it. I'm trying to help you realize it's not as bad as you might think. Our imperfect was elu on at the end. This is elu san at the end. Just learn it. New paradigm. Elu sa, elu sas, elu sen, elu salmon, elu sate, elu san. This is your aorist active paradigm. This is Greek's way of telling you that the verb you're looking at was a past tense, not a process, not a once-off big event. We look back on it in the past and it's just sort of done as a holistic kind of approach. We looked at it, it's done. Aorist, classic kind of past tense in English. I untied. Elu sa, elu sas, elu sen, elu salmon, elu sate, elu san. This is your aorist active paradigm. Now, let's have a bit of a think about this then, right? Augments at the front, sigmas at the back. All this stuff's going to happen. It's going to involve all of it. So let's have a bit of practice on trying to figure out some of these. Oh, before we do, there's your verb paradigm now, right? Now it's getting serious, right? Now it's got 4 columns to it. We've got our present, our imperfect, our future, and our aorist active paradigms. They're all there, and that is now your practice table for your verb paradigm, right? It's getting bigger, right? We're getting serious now. You guys are you're growing up, right? Okay? So that we can talk about things in the past and things in the future, and we can do all that. Okay, let's have a bit of a practice then. Present, pempo. What would the aorist of pempo be? All right? Got to remember my augment rules, got to remember my sigma rules, got to remember my new ending. Got to remember my augment rules, got to remember my sigma rules, got to remember my new ending. I want everyone to write down what they think the aorist active indicative first person singular, we're just worrying about that for the moment, of pempo would be. Pempo. I want to change it to the aorist. What's that going to look like? Well, my aorist form I just looked at was e-lu-sa. E-lu-sa, yeah? So to change it to the aorist, I need to add the augment at the front, and I need to change the ending at the back here, yeah? All right, so let's add the augment out the front and change the endings at the back here. Okay, now is that all okay? No, not all okay yet, right? When I put the augment out the front with a vowel, is that okay? This means yes, this means no. Right? When I put the augment out the front with a consonant, is that okay? Yeah? So I can say epemp, that's fine, no problems there. But what about when I put the sigma at the back? Now I've got pi plus sigma. And what did I say pi plus sigma equals? According to our S sigma rules, it equals psi. Right? So this is going to be epemsa. Epemsa. That would be my aorist active indicative first person singular of pempo. Epemsa. Up on the screen. If you can see it better, up there, look there. Nobody's looking there. They're all looking at the board still. I can see your eyes. Epemsa. That's what it would look like. Right? Let's do another one. Can you see it's starting to hide pretty well now, hey? Starting to hide a lot better. Yeah. How would I translate that in English? Great question. Pemsa. What's the vocab word hiding behind it, Jasmine? Pempo? I send. Yeah? And talk to me now about this verb, the way I like to be spoken to about this verb. It's the of pempo, which means I send. So the aorist active indicative first person singular of pempo would be I sent. Yeah, I sent. Exactly. Was sending. Yeah. I was sending. Yeah. Exactly right. Exactly right. Excellent. Okay, let's do another example. Akuo. 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 What would the aorist active indicative first person singular form of akuo be? Well, if I wanted to try and change akuo into my aorist active indicative first person singular form, from the present to the aorist, I need to do what? I need to add an augment out the front of it, and I need to change the ending from O to sa. I need to change the ending from O to sa. Okay? Now have I got problems? Yeah, okay. So what happens when I add an augment out the front here? I got epsilon plus alpha augment rules that we just wrote down. When I put an epsilon out the front of an alpha and the augment, it's going to be eta, right? What about at the end here? I've added a sigma plus a vowel at the end. Is that okay? That's fine, isn't it, right? We didn't have worries about that when we were there. So this is going to be e, ku, sa. E, ku, sa would be the aorist form of akuo. Seeing how this works? How would I translate e, ku, sa? Akuo means I hear. So e, ku, sa would be I heard. I heard. Nice and simple. Getting how this works, yeah? Okay, now, what have I got for you here? I got your 4-column verb paradigm. Now let's just have a think about this for a second. I can't go very high, but I'm going to go this high. I'll go as high as I can. Augment. All right, that's the epsilon at the front. And sigma. Ending. Got it? Just do a little table. This little table, just scribble it down, might help you with your translation, right? Present. Does the present tense have an augment? Does the present tense have an augment? Have we got an epsilon out the front of our luo paradigm? No, no augment. Does the present tense have a sigma? No, just luo, luais, luai, luai. Didn't have any of them, right? Nothing. What about imperfect? Does our imperfect tense have an augment? This means yes, people, because I can't see your mouths. Does our imperfect tense have an augment on it? Yes, it does. Does our imperfect tense have a sigma? No. Future. Does our future tense have an augment? No. No augment on our future tense, is there? No epsilon out the front of our future tense. Does my future tense have a sigma at the end on the endings, yeah? Yes, it does. Aorist. Does my aorist tense have an augment? Yes, it does. Does my aorist tense have a sigma and its endings? Yes, it does. Okay? So you can see this is kind of like a little map that kind of helps you a little bit when you're out in the wild. Well, we haven't quite got out to the wild yet, but we're going to go to the zoo, right? You'll see some wild animals, but they're nice and contained still and it's safe, right? We're not out in the wild just yet, but we're getting there. But when we go out to the wild, we go out to the zoo, you come across a verb out in the wild and you look at it and you think, well, does it have an augment? Does it have a sigma? Does it look like that, right? Does it look like it's got an augment? Does it look like it's got a sigma? Looking like it's got an augment is going to mean lengthened vowels out the front of it. That just gives you this idea. It looks like it's got an augment. Looking like it's got a sigma might be one of those psi's or psi kind of letters or something like that, right? Does it look like it does? If it doesn't look like it's got an augment or a sigma, think present. If it looks like it's got an augment but doesn't look like it's got a sigma, think imperfect. If it looks like doesn't have an augment but it does have a sigma, you're thinking future. If it looks like it's got both, you're thinking aorist. Right? Okay? Just a little table that might just help you in terms of just trying to get your head around when we're going out in the wild and when I start asking the question, A, what's the vocab word hiding behind it? And B, talk to me about this verb in the way I like to be spoken to about verbs. What is coming to your mind? What tense is it? Right? That's not a bad little key, little rule of thumb that's going to help you for a little bit as you try and figure that out. Okay, I'm going to leave this up on the board for us here so you can reference it. But let's get out to the zoo at least. Not out to the wild just yet, the nice little sanitized zoo. So on page 77, 77. Page 77. Page 77. And I'm on exercise section A, page 77. And let's start working on questions 1 and 2. 1 and 2. And if you finish question 1 and 2, then go down to 6, 7, and 8. Questions 1 and 2 first. Let's just focus on that. But for the super speedies who are smashing it out and want to do more, jump down to questions 6, 7, and 8. You with me? Page 77, exercise section A, questions 1 and 2. And then if you're super speedy, go down to 6, 7, and 8. And I'll leave that up on the board so you can start getting your head around it. Or you can reference it without flicking back all over your pages. That's easier, isn't it? Yes, it does. Otherwise, it would be baptizo, right? But it's baptis. So yes, it's got a sigma. Okay, back to that table that half of you didn't bother writing down. If I've got no augment, but I've got a sigma, then what am I thinking? I'm thinking future. So I go to my future column, and I'm like, can I find my endings? Baptisi, luso, lucis, luci. Yes, I can. So this is the future active, indicative, third person singular form of baptizo. So how am I going to translate that? Future active, indicative, third person singular form of baptizo. He, she, or it will baptize. Yeah? That's future. He, she, or it will baptize. Does my sentence tell me who he, she, or it is? Do I have a nominative noun? Yes, I do. Altos. There's my nominative noun. My nominative third person pronoun. So yes, it is he. I baptized then, but now he will baptize. I baptized then, past tense, but now he will baptize, future tense. Everybody happy enough? Any questions about that one? Yes, Derek? I baptized. Oh, you were saying I was baptized. Excellent. Okay. If I'm being baptized, then the action is happening to me. I'm not the one doing the action. At the moment, everything we've looked at so far is present, imperfect, future, or aorist. Active, 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 active. Active means the subject's the one doing the verb. We'll get to other voices later. But the passive voice is when the action happens to me. So if I was to say, I was baptized, then that's a passive voice. Yeah, thank you. Good point. Active voice is what we're all about at the moment. I baptized. Cool. Any other comments or questions about that first translation? Okay, it's lunchtime. Let me just read this one out quickly for you. Keruksen, there's my verb. Okay, first let me just break it up. I've got to break it up. There's my punctuation's going to help me. And then kai, edukso, here's another kai. That's going to help me. Right? So I've got 3 different chunks. It looks like a big, scary sentence, but don't worry about it. If you break it up correctly, then they're just little clauses, little clauses, little clauses. How do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? That's how you eat an elephant. It's the same with this, right? It might look so big and scary, but if you just break it down into its clauses and just take one clause at a time, it's not so scary, right? My verb, does it look like it's got an augment in front of it? Yes, it does. Does it look like it's got a sigma? It does look like it's got a sigma because my vocab word that's hiding behind here is keruso. But it's not keruso, it's keruksen. And this is what happens when I get a sigma plus a double sigma, right? So it does look like it's got an augment, and it looks like it's got a sigma. If it's got an augment and a sigma, I'm thinking aorist. Then I go to my aorist table. Elusa, elusas, elusen. Looks like it, right? So it's third person singular. It's aorist, active, indicative, third person singular. Excellent. Cool. Keruksen. I preach, I proclaim. He, she, or it proclaimed. Does my sentence tell me who he, she, or it is? Yes, it's a voice. There's my nominative noun. A voice proclaimed, prepositional phrase, ek plus the genitive. A voice proclaimed from heaven. What did the voice proclaim? And aorist, augment and sigma makes me think aorist. Augment and sigma, aorist. And I have glorified it, and no augment, sigma. No augment, sigma, makes me think future. and I will glorify again. That's what it says. I know that's a bit rushed, but we need to go to lunch. So this would read in the end, and a voice proclaimed from heaven, and I glorified it, and I will glorify again. That's what I would say is the answer to that one. Okay, let's go have lunch break, and I will see you at 2 o'clock. We will be back this afternoon. I beg your pardon?
I do need to
Okay, cool. Okay.